So in yesterday's podcast episode, I was talking about those things that kind of drive us mad about ourselves, so much so that we think we're going crazy, we think we've lost the plot, the way we think or the way we behave that's getting in our way. We must be going mad, we think. And I was talking about how very quickly what we come to in my therapy room is that we realise very quickly that it's not a sign that we're going mad, but it's actually a sign of genius. It's a sign that, it makes sense, basically. And if you've not heard yesterday's podcast episode, then it might be worth giving that a listen, just to hear that concept, that the thing that's getting in our way, that we think is driving us mad, that we think is us being mad, actually makes so much sense. And that very quickly, my clients realise how much sense it makes and are then able to get to work on that. So it's actually a sign of genius rather than a flaw. It's something, in fact, that we create often in the first instance to get us through a very, very difficult environment, helps us navigate through in a really smart way when, especially if we're young, our resources are at their lowest, aren't they? When we're young, we're at our most dependent. And so in the aftermath of releasing that podcast yesterday, I got a question which basically said, well, give us an example of that. What do you mean? So I'm going to give you the case of the supposedly too loud child. Now, this isn't a case that I've worked on. It's something that I'm making up in the moment to illustrate the point. I wouldn't share an actual case from an actual client because of confidentiality and all of that sort of stuff. So this is something I've just kind of invented in order to illustrate the point and serve as an example of what I mean. So in the case of the supposedly too loud child, let's say you've got a little child and they laugh and shout and sing and do the kind of things that little children do when they're having fun. And let's say one of their parents, just as an example in this case, let's say one of their parents becomes, every time they do that, this person is so infuriated by the child that they either yell at them or hit the child. Now, if you're that 4-year-old child who every time you yell or laugh or sing or express yourself, you get hit or shouted at, guess what that really smart, genius 4-year-old child will start to do? They'll start to shut up. They'll start to make sure they don't make a noise. Anytime they go to express themselves, they will push it down because they learn really quickly that if they let that stuff out and go over a certain volume, they're going to be hit or shouted at. And so their genius is that they create this symptom in inverted commas, because is it really a symptom or is it something that's really smart? But they create this thing where they ensure that they stay quiet, stay invisible, don't make a noise, don't make their voice heard, and whenever they've got something joyous in them, they suppress it. Now, that 4-year-old might now be 44. And that app that they've downloaded, if you like, or more accurately created, is still running because it's not been updated yet. But you can see, and of course it might drive them mad. They might say, whenever I'm in any sort of situation, I can't find joy, I can't express myself, they'll say. They might say, I can't find my voice. If somebody asks me something like to give a presentation in work, I just can't do it. I go all jittery and I panic. And they might say, I must be mad. There must be something wrong with me that I can't do this. But as I say, when you think of that case and that person, when they were 4 years old, was hit every time they did express themselves, well, doesn't it make sense? Doesn't it really make sense that if they're still running that programming today, that they're still not doing it today, that they're still feeling some anxiety about expressing themselves, given that when they did, they got hit or shouted at, given that when they created this programming, that would have been the consequences. So hopefully that's an explanation of what I mean by this isn't a fault in us when we create these things. This is a sign of our genius. So even though at 44, it's getting in this person's way, it's stopping their opportunities, it's stopping them being expressive of joy, so much so that they think they must be losing the plot. Very quickly, we can discover that it makes a load of sense. So thanks for the question. I always like these questions coming in. Hopefully that illustrated it for you. And if you'd like to work with me at all, you can find out more about me. I'm Alun Parry at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. You can work with me in person at my offices in Rodney Street or online through video conferencing software. And if you like the podcast, please do share it with friends and anyone who you think is going to enjoy it and get some benefit from it. And until tomorrow's podcast, thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.